Here we go. So last time, one of the things that we actually did was the counting principle, okay? Now, with the counting principle, it's called different things. I think our book calls it the counting principle. I'm not sure if anyone here has taken Math 101, but I think in that textbook, they call it the basic counting rule. But essentially, the idea is the same. The idea is the same in that if you have m ways, here, let me get my laser thing. If you have m ways of completing, a certain task, like the first task, let's say, okay? So let's say there's an experiment and you're rolling a die, let's say, okay? And then you're flipping a coin. So each of those tasks are in the, the experiment. If there are m ways of completing the first task and n ways of completing the second task, then in total, to complete both tasks, there are m times n ways of completing both tasks. Let me say it again. If there are m ways of completing the first task and n ways of completing the second one, then there are m times n ways of completing both tasks. So for instance, if you're rolling a die and you read off the number you roll, right? That would be your first task. There are 6 ways you can complete that task, right? Complete, we mean the number you get when you roll. So you roll and record the number, I guess, would be the first task. The second task would be, say, flipping a 2-sided coin and recording and writing down, recording whatever, even just observing whether the coin lands heads up or tails up, right? Then there are m times n ways of completing both tasks. In other words, for the die and the coin, you have 6 times 2, which is 12 ways both of those tasks can be completed. I think we actually have seen that earlier. We listed all the outcomes, but now we know, even without listing, how many outcomes there are. So you can list them, but you don't have to, is what I'm saying. It's not a bad idea to list outcomes. If you have them all in front of you, then you can analyze, and it does make things a little bit easier. But we saw, I think I mentioned this last time, you're not going to be able to list all the outcomes. I mean, what if both tasks were rolling rolling a 6-sided die, right? And recording the number. So you're rolling a 6-sided die and you're recording the number. There are m ways for the first roll, n ways for the second roll. Then there would be 36 ways of completing both tasks. I mean, that's not terrible, but I don't know about you, but I would not want to write it. Write out all outcomes, that is. You can generalize this to more than 2 events. You just multiply, basically. So if there was a third task that you had to complete, and let's say there were, I don't know, W ways of completing it, along with the first 2, you would have m times n times W ways of completing those 3 events. You just keep on multiplying. That's really what this is saying. Okay, so now let's do an example. Well, actually 2 of them. So let's say for next semester, this is why actually I thought to ask about next semester, the spring 2021. Let's say you're making your schedule, okay? And this is all hypothetical. Let's say you have 5 choices for the math class you have to take. You have to take a math class, let's say, right? You have 5 choices for that. Let's say you have to take an English class, right? You have 8 choices for that, let's say. You have 3 choices for the history class you have to take, and you have to take a science class. There are 4 choices for that. So in other words, in your schedule, you have to have one of each class. This is the number of choices. In total, you can make 5 times 8 times 3 times 4, which is 480 different schedules. I did email you the notes, just letting you know they're in your inbox. Okay? Your email inbox, that is. This is saying that there are 480 different schedules you can make. Again, this is just the counting principle. Each different choice for a class would give you a different schedule. Now, let's say in your English class, I don't know, I haven't taken an English class in college, to be honest, except, what was it, like English 101 or something when I was a freshman, first going in. But let's say in that class, you have to read a novel and 1 volume of poetry. For some reason, you have to do that. Well, if there are 5 novels to choose from and 11 volumes of poetry to choose from, right? Then you have 5 times 11 different ways, or 55 ways of choosing the novel and that volume of poetry. Again, we're just multiplying. That's all we're doing. So it's just the basic counting rule is what we're using here. You have 5 novels to choose from, 11 volumes of poetry, multiplying. So that's what's happening in this class. So that's what's happening here. Okay. All right. So I wanted to do another example first. I think it'd be good to do that worksheet, as I said I would. So what I'm going to do now is get the worksheet. Let me share it with you. Although I did email it, let me just share the worksheet with you guys. Are there any questions, though? Okay. Let me get that worksheet. Have it as a PDF, and it's not. Oh, here we go. You may not get through all of it. We'll do, I guess, a few if we have to, okay? So maybe some of these I figured we can do together, but I figured it'd be good for you guys to try some at first. But why don't we do the first 2 together, okay? I mean, here we're just writing out the sample